In this video, we have the Redcat hauler, and you know one thing that it needs? It needs a freaking winch. It's got this plastic winch just sitting here, doing nothing, just wasting space. We need a real winch. So we have picked up this Yeah Racing. This is YA0511BK. Should be a simple plug and play operation. We're gonna bolt it in, we're gonna hook it up, and we're gonna see what it takes to make this thing pull a car up on the trailer, because that's what it needs to do. This truck just needs it. We're gonna start by getting this old winch off of here. Make it a little easier, went ahead and removed the body. It looks like there's just these 3 screws, and it looks like they are just a standard 2.5mm screw. Looking at the parts that come here in the kit, we have the dual motor winch itself. Each motor has wires that come back to a Y here. That Y can then plug into just a simple toggle switch. Toggle switch then goes over to some power source. The good news is we do have an open spot on the receiver. We might also be able to use some of these other wires in order to tap in there to get the power. And then the whole concept is just drill a little hole somewhere like right here in order to mount that switch up. And then all is done, easy peasy, just like that. Except as I look at this, I don't know how I'm actually supposed to mount this winch. Like, clearly there's mounting holes right here. That makes sense. But if you look at it, there's no way to get a screw to those holes. Okay, so maybe you take the winch off, mount the plate first, then put the winch on the plate. Nope, because its screws are in the bottom. So I think you're supposed to come at this from the bottom and put the bolts up through with some nuts on the top. That makes this a little bit more complicated. And to make it worse, it doesn't look like the screw holes actually even line up. So what we're going to have to do is take this plate off, set it up here, mark where new holes need to be drilled, drill those, and then mount this whole thing from the bottom. Very small screws and the nuts that come in the kit. We'll put a bolt from this top, bolt from the bottom, a nut from the top, and that will bolt this whole thing on there. So a little more complicated than I thought it was going to be. So here's where you can see I used a gold paint pen that I had laying around and was able to mark where those 4 holes are going to go. I'm now just going to use a good sized drill bit to make holes right in where those are. I have the holes drilled in the plate here on the truck, and I have the mounting bracket mounted back to the winch itself with a lot of Loctite, because I do not want those little screws to back out on me. In the kit, it comes with some very small little screws along with some itty bitty micro tiny little nuts. So I am going to be absolutely slathering those things in some Loctite, putting the screws in from the bottom and then trying to get those little nuts on them. Probably not going to see me do this on screen because I think it's going to take me a little bit to get all that in there. I think it's going to be some finagling, but that's what's next. Well, that was mostly successful. It's there. 3 screws are in it. 1 screw not going to work, but 3 screws are in it, and unfortunately one of the wires actually came off of the other motor while I was doing all this. It just literally just fell off. It looks like the solder job wasn't very good, so we're going to get everything else hooked back up. I'm going to then come in and strip this insulation and get that soldered back on there. Just need to make sure that I wire it up in the right orientation with this motor so that they're not fighting each other when we trigger it. But we're going to go ahead, get the harness hooked in, go ahead and try to get the switch and power hooked up, make sure it turns and make sure it works. Now, just as a quick test, I have a battery plugged in, I have the switch just laying here, I have the power lead going into the 4th channel on the receiver. See, does it work? Move. Aha, look at us. We have winch. Now, obviously, I don't know how powerful it is until we get both motors hooked up and we actually try to drag a car up it. But the good news is it actually moves, it works, it does the thing. So now we can go ahead and finish the install. So I am going to now mount this switch. And so I think what I'm going to do is drill a hole right here in the bottom of this part of the bed and let that switch come through, and that way you can easily reach finger in and switch it back and forth. Oh yeah, check it out. Cab is back on, winch is mounted up. I'm telling you, it looks so much better than that fake winch that was sitting there before. Even if it never works, even if I never really use it, it just looks better sitting there. Switch fits in perfect right in there in the cab. That's great. And now it's the moment of truth. I'm gonna put my MST drift car here. We're gonna let the winch out and see if it'll pull it back up the truck. So it works. It really, really works. I'm excited about that. Just so you know, it did bog down a little bit pulling that car up the hill. That's because the battery was actually at low voltage. So it turns out I just didn't have a fully charged battery in there. Swapped in batteries, much more powerful. So that works really well. So it looks good. It works well. Very excited for this upgrade. Now, I do have more that I'm doing to this Redcat hauler. So if you're interested in anything that I do, there'll be a pop-up playlist coming up right over here to your right where you can see more of that. Hope to see you in one of those videos. If you have questions about what I did here in this video, leave them down in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you and goodbye.